So now that I've provided with a bit of an overview of Hardcat, the company, and the Lebosi Asset Management Solution, we're looking to basically give you a hands-on exposure to a demonstration. And this demonstration will take you through a typical user story that illustrates some of the product features in a real-life environment, and it will hopefully provide you with an insight into the potential that it has for your business. So as mentioned earlier, Hardcat Lebosi is asset agnostic, and so it can support any kind of physical asset at all. But in this case, just for the purpose of the demonstration, our scenario is going to be based on a commercial vehicle. And for that, I'd like to introduce Colin Beach, our services manager and our product guru, and he's going to basically show you firsthand the experience with the product in action.
Thank you very much, Ralph, for that great introduction about Hardcat and everyone so far. So the demonstration flow we've chosen for this demonstration today is that head office has procured new vehicles and they've dispatched them to another part of the organization who will become responsible for it. Although this scenario is focused on a new vehicle, what you're about to see can be applied to any type of asset. And that's the exciting thing about this. What I'll be demonstrating today is from the perspective of the receiving organization. This will highlight some of the key transactions and capabilities of Hardcat Lebosi. What we'll be showing you is the following. We'll show the user dashboard showcasing the user interface and how friendly it is. Provide a high-level overview of an asset record. In this case, the vehicle record, which will be subject to the demonstration. Using the check-in transaction to receive the vehicle into the organization's location. When we issue the vehicle to an individual for their use for their shift, at the end of their shift, we'll return the vehicle and also record a fault as well. A maintenance manager will create a job to rectify the damage, then provide an overview of our reporting capabilities, and finally highlight the use of the Hardcat Mobility solution for auditing.
Yeah, so before we log on to the system to demonstrate the details, let's talk about how head office has onboarded the vehicle.
Thanks, Ralph. Head office has imported the vehicles into the solution using their standard onboarding process. But depending on your organizational situation, this could be achieved by one of the following methods. Directly by the Hardcat interface using our create transaction. When there are only a few assets, you can also use the copy function for more efficiencies. For multiple asset onboarding, you can also use the bulk import functionality or have direct integration into your ERP solution. Alternatively, where convenient, our mobile application can be used directly in the field to onboard assets.
So now that head office is on board of the new fleet vehicles, they will dispatch some of these vehicles to each of the different regional offices using the Hardcat Lebosi checkout transaction. We will now log on to the Hardcat Lebosi system where you will be presented with the intuitive dashboard screen. And this will provide relevant information for the user's role and the entry point for navigating the system's features and functionality, and it's required to manage the assets throughout its entire life cycle. So in this case, Colin will be providing a demonstration from the regional office's perspective and using the system in a role as an asset manager to receive the vehicle. So you want to take over the screen, Colin?
Yep, you just got to if you stop sharing first, please, Ralph, I can then take it over. Thank you very much. And let's start sharing. Alrighty. So when a user logs into the Hardcat Lebosi solution, they are presented, let me move this off here. They are presented with a dashboard. The dashboard is made up of many features, including our menu structures, as well as tiles. The top line of our tiles has been configured for providing insights relevant to our role. The tiles below have been configured for commonly used transactions. The system can be configured to meet the required roles and applicable dashboards for your organization or business, such as an asset management style dashboard, maintenance manager style dashboard, finance managers, or even frontline users. The dashboard I'm using today has been configured to meet the typical needs of an asset manager. For this demonstration, I'll put our attention towards the first tile, showing all assets in transit to my site. As shown here, you can now see all vehicles that are in transit to my organizational site. This information can help us use for planning purposes, as well as to prepare the team for the receipt of these vehicles to our site. So one of these vehicles has arrived in our driveway. So let's look up its details and have a look. So what we're going to be looking at now is an asset record. So since this vehicle has arrived on site, we can now go through some of the key details and information that this vehicle has. Some of the main information that we can start with is the Hardcat Lebosi allows for the configurable identifiers. And what do I mean by that? We have asset code, we have barcodes, we have RFID, we have lot numbers, we have serial numbers. And the benefit of using this type of tagging technologies as part of the solution, it creates efficiencies when transacting upon our assets and when completing auditing activities by either barcode or via RFID scanning to correctly identify and audit your assets individually or via bulk. The other great thing that we have as well is our product concept, which is important to standardize naming conventions, unique model tracking requirements, as well as also consistency throughout the solution. We have other information such as status, asset conditions, and where applicable, individual person assignment and reservations. There are also specific areas to record additional information about the assets, which is configured only to record specific details about that product or relationships to other assets, locations, and organizations. And this other information can be found in the tabs below, such as our details tab, our finance tab for financial information such as purchasing, warranty, end of life, preset information, which allows for up to an extra nearly unlimited amount of information per asset, jobs tab, which is going to be any historical jobs, projected jobs, and current jobs for the asset. So we always can see what has happened or is going to happen to our vehicles. Maintenance tabs, so we can see any of the maintenance schedules that the asset is a part of. We have relationships to other assets or assets relationships to this vehicle. In this instance, we can see this bus has card readers. It's got a speed limiter. If we have links, which are relationships between assets, notes, so again, information that people can record about that vehicle, file uploads, access control lists, and actions. Thank you, Ralph.
Yeah, so now that we've seen the details about the vehicle that has arrived at the receiving organisation site, let's receive it via the check-in transaction.
Thanks, Ralph. What we use the check-in transaction for is to validate we have received the vehicle at our site and allow us to update the current location and home location if this is the site the vehicle is going to reside at permanently. For efficiency, the system has already predetermined both the default site and the location based around my user profile. This is one of the many features which allows us to effectively and efficiently receipt these vehicles in and using the check-in functionality. Although if necessary, we can change the location. For example, if instead of being checked directly into the depot, we could check it directly into its parking bay 1 or into the workshop. A lot of flexibility and functionality that we have available to us. Although I'll just be using the standard default location for today's transaction. The check-in transaction can also record the person that was driving or delivered the vehicle as part of this transaction. What I'll be doing now is using our scanner to scan an employee's barcode to specify them as part of the transaction. So I just scan their barcode then. And as we can see now by scanning that barcode, I have allocated the Lucknow driver as my delivery person. Now we can add vehicles to the transaction that have been received. To add this vehicle to the check-in, we can easily do this by one of the following methods. Scan the vehicle, which I shall do now. We could either type in the item, or we could use the find functionality to also identify the asset. Additional vehicles could be added in as easily just by, again, scanning them into the transaction. Once the vehicles have been added to the transaction, you'll also have the ability to change the location individually if necessary, as well as update the condition. So if it's not received in the condition that was sent in, we can update that to be one of the other conditions in the system and then record a comment as to why that condition was set. The check-in transaction also has the ability to ensure that the vehicles have arrived at our site that actually were intended for our site. As the system will check based around the checkout transaction, so the site it was sent from, it will make sure that that site it was sent from or where it's intended to go to is the correct site. And if it isn't the correct site, warnings and messages will be shown to the user in this place. So now I'm going to save this transaction. As part of this save transaction, what the system will do is actually also generate a report, which we can then use potentially to sign off that the vehicles have been receipted. So this could be potentially printed, physically signed, And if necessary, we could then upload that file back in against our transaction, which I'll demonstrate in a second. So I'm going to just review the details of our transaction. So like anything in the system, it's a transaction. It has a code saved against it. So unique, identifiable, traceable actions or transactions in the system. Everything that we have done has been recorded. The items that have been checked in, the actions that have occurred, and also files. So for example, I could now, if necessary, upload that scanned check-in transaction report, which is now saved against this transaction. So as again, everything we do in the system, everything is saved in the system, meaning the full history is recorded for audit and review, which includes any values that we change. And again, that's not just for the asset record or this transaction, everything in the system, all the major entities, all transactions down to a field is recorded within the solution. Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you. And that's a very important point because it reflects that characteristic of chain of custody of our solution. Everything's recorded, everything can be reviewed. So now that the vehicle has been receipted by the new organization, it's basically ready for operational use. So what we'll do now, the next part of the demonstration is illustrating the scenario where a new driver comes to start their first day on the job and begins their shift. Colin.
Thanks, Ralph. So again, what we're going to be looking at here is the asset issue return transaction, which is a mechanism for assigning assets to a person and for the person to return their vehicles or assets at the end of their shifts. Now that we have the vehicles checked in and their location set, the vehicles can now be issued to a person for operational use. As part of the issue transaction though, the system will check the following. On the person, they'll make sure they are an active person and qualified, very important, make sure they're qualified to receive the vehicle. If the vehicle is reserved for a particular person, if the vehicle now is in a safe condition and is flagged as in service. The system will also make sure there's no outstanding maintenance jobs on the asset. And these are just some of the checks that occur. There are more checks that happen in the background around quantities and make sure people get the right amount of items as other areas. In this case, I will be issuing the vehicle that is reserved for our Luck Now driver. He's new to the job and he's going to be working his first 8-hour shift. The driver has now arrived at the issue counter with their ID card, which I will now scan, again, using our scanner for efficiency. I've scanned my driver and our driver is presented. So as we can see now, I've scanned the driver's ID. And we can see here, we also has shown that the asset manager has preferred this particular bus for this driver. So now I will go through and actually issue this vehicle to this driver. And we can see now it's gone from preferred to now being issued. So once the asset is scanned, you can actually now see it is here and is no longer reserved. Also, as like I said, it was his first day. So we now get to issue him 2 uniforms. I can do this again easily using the scanner to scan the uniforms inventory barcode. What this will do, as we can see here now on the right-hand side, we have issued this bus driver his uniform, but we give all our bus drivers 2 uniforms. We can do this easily by either scan the barcode again or just change the quantity to 2. Very simple. I can now save this transaction or save and review, either way. So based around this transaction, which is now saved, what will happen is this asset will be issued to that person. This person will then also have the inventory allocated to them as well. So again, just look at our checkout transaction. We now have our saved transaction, which will be able to then record, review, and look at into the future. As we can see here, it's broken into certain areas. What assets were issued as part of this transaction? Did I return anything? What inventory was issued? As we can see here, we issued 2 uniforms to the bus driver. So as we can see here, everything that we did has been recorded and is all correct and very easily to view.
So the drivers, yeah, thank you. So the driver has gone on his shift and he's finished for the day and he's now returning the vehicle back to the depot. But during the shift, the driver has noticed a leaking tyre and he's gone around to the side and found that there's damage to the tyre wall that needs to be repaired. So now during the return transaction, we'll demonstrate him recording a maintenance issue.
Thanks, Ralph. So what I've just done now, I've gone back into our issue return transaction. So after their shift, the person is now going to return their vehicle. So in the same transaction, it is also going to be possible to return any unused inventory, but as the driver will be taking their uniform home, we won't be doing that this transaction. So now I'm just going to scan our driver's barcode again, which will then...
Can I take a pause?
Sure.
Yeah, this is a request to all the participants. While the demo is on, if there are any questions crossing your mind, you could please post them on the Q&A section on the bottom line out here, so that we'll address them once we are done. All right. Yeah. Over to you, Colin. Thank you.
Cool. No problem at all. So what I've done now, I've scanned the person's barcode or identified. They also could have scanned a little, might have NFC cards or other ways to identify them to the solution. But once they have identified the solution, because assets have been issued to them, as the issuing officer, I can now see what has been issued to them previously. So we can now see that the asset has been issued. So I'm now going to easily return this asset again by scanning the asset barcode. And as you can see now, the asset has now moved to the returned asset area. Upon returning the vehicle, the accountable person, being our driver, mentions that the vehicle has a tire puncture and the tire needs to be repaired, as Ralph mentioned. We can log this fault pretty simply and easily, first of all, by changing our condition to being a fault-based condition, then also capturing the comment as to what went wrong to provide some feedback to the maintenance manager as to what happened here. So as we can see here, bus right-hand side tire has a puncture and is deflated. Again, if it feels too short, I can hover over it and it'll give me that full text to show on screen. So, and one of the other good things about this as well, as part of those issue transaction, by selecting the condition that I have, the system will then block this asset from being issued until the damage has been rectified, and will also update the maintenance manager's dashboard, identifying them that a new vehicle requires a repair. Thanks, Ralph.
So as the vehicle has been returned with a fault and it needs to be attended to, the maintenance manager will need to create a job and start the repair process. So the Hardcat Lebosi jobs functionality is agnostic to the type of activity raised, and therefore can be used in your organization to raise any kind of job, anything that basically needs to be tracked. And now I'll get Colin to demonstrate this particular example of repairing the wheel.
Thanks, Ralph. So again, to do this, we first of all have to create the job in our system. Very simple, very easy to do, either by typing in the job type that you want to use, or we can select it from our catalog. So again, we need to choose the appropriate job type. So I'm going to go into my vehicle servicing, bus servicing, and we've noted that the tire puncture, so we need to do a tire puncture repair. So we're going to press select on that, which will then go through and pre-populate certain attributes about the asset. Sorry, about the job, my bad. So we can see that the job has started in an open status. If necessary, we can set priority. If it's being completed by a third-party supplier, we can mention them here. At this point, we also can allocate the person who's going to be doing the job. Right now, it's our good friend, the Lucknow mechanic, is going to be assigned the job. We also can mention the person who requested it. So the driver we can mention was a person who allocated or requested that fix. So I'm now going to save this record. So we've now created the job, and you can see now that we have more information saved on our job, including our totals. Also, the information, this job would be blocked issuing the assets because we've noted that this type of fault should not allow this asset to be issued. So again, all these checks and balances are in place. But what you may notice now is down the bottom, we have a lot more information that we can store about this job now. These tabs include our asset. So what asset is it this is relating against? So again, I can then scan our asset against our job. But if there's more vehicles, again, we could add more vehicles. If there's a couple of different vehicles that have tire punctures, we could either scan their barcodes or using our green plus button, bulk add assets into this job as well. We also have the ability to capture presets, which is information about the vehicle or the job that needs to be captured. We have actions, which allows us to record the user's time and any action notes taken, which also includes labor cost, a very important component to work out our total cost of ownership on our assets over their lives. Parts consumption, including a rapid parts capability, which I'll showcase shortly. Additional costs, job links. So if there are other jobs which spawn from this job, we can create relationships between jobs to show the progression and ongoing nature about a particular job if it's necessary. Notes, so any notes from the people who are completing or actioning this activity. Access controls, files. So again, upload any files if necessary. Access controls, who can access this job, who can see this job, and who can update and validate information within it. Then finally, our actions functionality. So again, tracking and tracing everything that's happened about the changes, the modifications about this job in the solution. But what I'm going to show you now is our rapid parts capability as well. So the jobs within Hardcat allows us to capture parts that are consumed as part of a service. This is achieved either via the rapid parts functionality or via our ad hoc parts consumption. So what this feature enables us to do is maintain accurate stock levels, and also then the consumption of these leads into the total cost of maintenance and also ownership. As configured, rapid parts for this tire puncture that we're doing right now, the system says that you need a tire puncture kit as well as valves. All these items in the system have a cost associated to them, which we'll see flow through, we will see flow through shortly. So we can see that the system will know how many parts are required, but the system will also say where these are located. So right now we can see Lucknow has some, and they've got 194 of these. So we've got plenty to use, as well as our tire puncture repair kits. We've got 89 of these as well. So again, we're fine for now to actually use these. So we can go ahead and choose the location, which we've now done, to retrieve these items. We can now press add all to then add these to our job, which will then decrement the quantities that we have selected, and then we can then assign these to the job. And as we can see, based around our quantities selected, our unit cost, our costs have been added to the job. As well as doing that based around the decrement of the parts themselves, that can, if necessary, re-trigger ordering activities to ensure that you don't run out of any critical parts. So as I progress through the job, I can then add my actions in, costs, notes, and any other information I need to based around what you see in the system. As we get to the end of the job, we can also easily close off the job by changing our status to be closed, and then save and close that record.
So now the vehicle has been repaired and it's returned back into service. And with the Hardcat Lebosi system collecting all the details that you've seen for every transaction along the way, it's important to understand that that information can be used to help make key business decisions for the business and provide insights around what's going on. So for the next part of the demonstration, we'll provide you with a brief overview of the Hardcat Lebosi reporting capabilities. Colin.
Here's Ralph. The Hardcat Lebosi system has extensive reporting built in directly into the solution, but it also allows for custom reports to be built for your organization. And this information can be extracted in both PDF, CSV, or Excel format to enable you to do further analysis and also get valuable data insights out of the solution. So for today, I'm going to give a quick demonstration based around the job types that we've just viewed, based around our tire puncture kit. So in our jobs reporting area, we have our service job history and job type. So what this will allow me to do, based around the criteria that we can put into the report to provide us our output, we can go through and say, well, when I want to find out all the services that happened in the last, say, since February to today, or say to tomorrow, and we also can choose it to be our tire puncture repair kit. Helps if I spell it correctly. Tire puncture repair kit. Again, which I could have typed it in as you saw there, or I could have chosen it from our job type selector, like I did when I created the job. So I can now press run to go and generate that report. And which I've opened up in a different window. Here we are. So as we can see here now, we have just completed we have run our report, and we can go, and as we can see, it's showing for our Lucknow mechanic, they have completed this service 8 times so far. And what it's now is giving us a breakdown of each of those repairs that have occurred based around the information that's stored within that. So this is, again, just a subset of the information that is saved against those reports. But again, this is some pertinent information that was required for the report to do. So again, this particular report provides history of the puncture and details of the vehicles, as we can see here. The solution also provides in other areas more detailed reports, which also for assets and other areas, exhibits, jobs, etc., which provides a full history as well along in the system. But there's lots of reports for all the data in the solution. And in order to have good quality reports, we must have good quality data in the solution.
Thank you, Colin. And so The next part of this demonstration will be utilising the Hardcat Lebosi mobility application, and you'll see that come up as a mirroring of a device on the interface on the screen. Whereas the web interface you would have seen so far is typically used in the office environment, this mobile application will be typically used as a mobile-friendly experience for users who are outside of the standard office environment, so in the field, if you will. Now, this part of the demonstration will focus upon the use of that mobility tool to perform efficient asset audits. Regular audit practices ensure the business has good quality data, which Colin mentioned before is critical in order to be able to produce good quality and insightful reports. And to have good quality data in the system means we have an ability to then report on aspects of compliance, efficient planning, and being able to make key business decisions. So it's also worth highlighting that the mobility application has been specifically designed for support offline, as I mentioned earlier. So something like a scope report where you're no longer connected to the internet, but have a job allocated. It allows you to go and do an audit based on an expected outcome and look for a difference report. So Colin, please take us through an example.
Thank you, Ralph. In this, I'm going to show you the Hardcat Lebosi Mobility. It's a very much feature-rich application, enabling your users in both a connected and disconnected mode to complete the following different style transactions. We have issue return. So just like what we saw on the web UI, we can do that in the field in a connected state. We also have the ability to look up assets. So if there's an asset just lying around, what information about that? We could scan that asset and return information to us to help us understand what it is and why it's there. We also have the ability to do ad hoc audits. So again, I've got a bit of spare time, I can go into the asset area and start scanning to validate and reaffirm the assets to the solution. We can also participate in data capture activities, which is capturing new assets in the system. So if you have a new site to onboard, you can then send an army of people out armed with Hardcat Lebosi Mobile to go and capture all new assets to load into the solution. We have asset audit jobs, which are pre-planned scoped activities, as well as service center, which is all my service jobs. These are the jobs which are allocated to the person using the solution. The application is very user-focused and only provides access to jobs where the user has been nominated as a participant, or in the case of like service jobs, have been nominated as the assigned to person, which we saw when we were creating the job, which really helps them focus on what is relevant and important to them. So out of all these great features today, I'll be focusing on the asset audit capability, particularly the My Asset Audit feature job. The asset audit enables users to validate and confirm the data, depending on the configuration of the job. And this data can include, which can be validated, including like location, where it is, the assigned person, validate and update barcode, validate, update RFID, validating the condition, validating our audit outcomes. And these are just a few of the capabilities that we have. Even though, like I said, the application support ad hoc auditing, today I'm going to demonstrate on our fixed audit functionality or our scoped audit activity. So we're at the Lucknow bus station. So I'm going to go through and do the audit of our Lucknow bus station. As we can see here, there's only a couple of different assets at this site here. One asset has already been audited, and there's 3 still to be audited. To do this functionality, we can audit the assets using the different identifiers that are available to the asset. So if we have scanners, we could use scanners to scan barcodes. Alternatively, you could use the application and scan the barcode of the asset itself to be able to then record the asset as being, so I scan the right barcode, as being recorded in the solution. There we are. By scanning that barcode, you can see I went from 2 assets audited, or sorry, 1 asset audited to 2 assets audited. And I can still have 2 assets which are unaudited. So on the system here, asset 48 and asset 110 is still unaudited. So if I now go back to turn my camera on, I can now go through and scan asset number 48, which will then, as we can see now, has now been added to our audited item list. Very quick, very efficient. Today, I'm demonstrating this using my iPhone. Again, not smoke and mirrors. This is something I'm doing in real time. But again, we can get dedicated devices to do this activity, such as Zebra devices or other ones which have built-in barcode scanners into the device. So again, very, very quick, very efficient way to confirm assets and validate assets into the solution. The other way we could also have done it is via RFID technology using scanners which have built-in RFID readers and transmitters directly into the device, which can really help us to be efficient to bulk capture or bulk audit assets within a particular area. Because I'm actually working in a disconnected state, I can now sync this data, or if I was actually working in a connected state, this will also be all happening in real time. So as an audit manager, I can then be seeing what's happening, what's going on, and be very on top of what my team is doing and what's been cited. Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you, Colin. So now that you've seen a mobility application in action, and I trust you've gained some insight into how this can provide an efficient tool for those people out in the field. Look, we've provided a bit of an overview of the functionality of Lebosi and given you a bit of an insight into its capabilities. And as you can see, the Hardcat Lebosi asset management solution really is just a core capability providing intelligent asset management. And it's agnostic to assets, it's highly configurable, and in many respects, it's there to address the specific needs of any business and fundamentally looking at managing the full life cycle of any type of asset. So that brings us to the end of the demonstration.